Reportable irregularities are dealt with within the Auditing Profession Act underneath the conduct and the liability of registered auditors. So to begin with, the Auditing Profession Act needs to define what a reportable irregularity is before it discusses exactly what the auditor's responsibility is with regards to a reportable irregularity, with regards to an RI. Most times, most people refer to reportable irregularity as an RI. It's just a simple abbreviation. So let's take a look at what an RI actually is. When we are auditing a client, we apply this to their financial statements. So we ask ourselves, has there been any unlawful act or omission that has been committed by a person responsible for management? When we talk about an RI at a company, it does not necessarily mean that we are talking specifically about the directors. Any level of management that is responsible for financial reporting, a higher level of management, it could be directors, it could be senior managers. They are not specific about what level of management this applies to. However, there is a very big difference behind a company that has fraud committed by its employee, the bookkeeper, versus fraud committed by management. Which is any of the following? One, if it has caused or is likely to cause. So this is about understanding that if it has caused in the past or in the future, it may cause material financial loss. Not just any loss, but the loss must be material. And when we use the word material in financial terms or as auditors, we mean that the users would be influenced by that if they had have known how much it was. So the materiality, it must be material financial loss. If it is fraudulent or it amounts to theft, it becomes material by nature, which means it doesn't matter whether it's a rand or R1,000,000, we're not happy with this. You can imagine if you are planning on investing in a company and you find out that the directors have stolen money. It doesn't matter how much they've stolen. For you, it's going to be material. It's going to impact you regardless of how much it is, because we don't want to know that we're investing in a company where the management cannot be trusted. And the last, if it amounts to a material breach of fiduciary duty. In terms of South Africa, the Companies Act requires directors to act in a certain way. So directors are required by law, they have certain fiduciary duties to look after the company, to make sure that the company's interests are taken care of. A breach of fiduciary duty is when the directors do not act in the best interests of the company and they contravene the sections of the company law that relates to how they should be behaving for the company on behalf of the company. So if there has been a material breach of fiduciary duty, the directors have not been acting in the best interests of the company, that is considered an RI as well. So for us, we've got to make sure that anything that takes place that meets any of these is considered, and that is what the APA considers a reportable irregularity, an unlawful act or omission committed by a person responsible for management which either causes or is likely to cause financial or material financial loss, or is fraudulent or amounts to theft, or is a material breach of financial duty. So all of these have a little or in between them. Any one of those three at the bottom there, if that is attached to that, that becomes a reportable irregularity, an RI. The question is, for us as an auditor, what do we do about this? And why does the Auditing Profession Act talk about the RI? Why is this something that's specifically mentioned within our auditing law? The reason for this is because our Code of Professional Conduct that governs us as auditors has a specific fundamental principle, confidentiality. As with most professions, there is an underlying principle of confidentiality within you and your client, or between you and your client. We know with doctors are required to keep their patients' information confidential. So you can imagine if someone goes to their psychologist, for example, and says they have just committed murder, there is a little bit of a conflict there because the psychologist wants to help this person and their confidentiality requires them to keep this between you and them, but this person has committed a crime. It leaves the professional in a very difficult difficult spot, in a very tight spot. The same happens here. You go and audit a company and you realize fraud has taken place. The company has committed some kind of fraud. The requirement in terms of your code of professional conduct is for you to remain confidential, to keep this information confidential. But you do know that fraud has taken place. As a professional, what is your responsibility? We feel that our responsibility should be to go and tell the authorities. If, for example, our client has defrauded the tax, they've done tax evasion, we feel that we should go to the receiver. We should go and tell them that our client, this particular person, has committed fraud. But we can't do that because the Code of Professional Conduct says you will keep that information to yourself. The Auditing Profession Act realizes this, the APA realizes this, and this reportable irregularity is brought into the APA as an understanding and as a practical allowance for us to say, if something like this, of this nature, has gone wrong, instead of you reporting it to the authorities, you report it to the APA and they will assess the situation and they will take it further. So the confidentiality between you and your client has not been reduced at all. You are still maintaining that confidentiality, but between you and the profession, the professional body will then decide whether or not to take it further. That is why the RI has been brought into the APA.